Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Dead podcast. We've reached episode 18, which means that the podcast is now legally allowed to drink blank.
In certain countries.
In England. It's an English podcast.
English podcast.
So it's an English podcast. That's how it
right.
works.
That's right. Yeah, we've taken the drinks out of America and placed them in the English podcast, which can now drink and get a little bit messy from here on forwards. That's right. I'm currently drinking right now rum and coke. A double, a triple, perhaps, maybe. I'm just joking. That would be a crazy way to start a podcast. It
would be pretty aggro.
You know, like the movie Flight. Just, I'm drunk right now. Like, jeez.
The nerf of Spirit Haze has hit me pretty hard.
I've been drinking for weeks.
Deep, yeah. Haven't stopped. It's only been 3 days. Haven't stopped. Yeah.
Actually, to be fair, it's more cause celebration than anything.
Well, it depends.
Maybe not
You're
for
either
you.
one side of the fence or the other, because that's the thing about fences.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of people on one side of the fence and quite a few on the other, which is like the receiving end of Spirit Hazes and then the Spirit Hazers.
That is the problem, I suppose. In every game against the Spirit Haze, there is at minimum 6 people that have to be against her.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. And a lot of times on your own team, you're somewhat against her as well because she's having all the jungle. There's nothing you can do about it because you kind of got to accept that eventually she will carry, and that you're a side character in her story.
Good deal with that.
Yeah, I don't like
That's what
that.
you get. No, it's just look, it's the natural sort of progression of things. I do find it quite funny looking back on it again, though. It is another case of Valve tried to balance something by changing something, and then it just got way worse. And then they were like, "Well, all right, I guess we just put it back a couple months later." Like,
I think, to be honest with you, though, it was somewhat good because there's now there is definitely multiple ways of playing Haze. I think by changing that, people figured out new builds, how to play more optimally. Because what's his name? It's like Renon. Let me look it up. Renon Haze. It is. He's a nice guy actually. I watched some of his videos. He used to play Haze quite a bit when she was like Gun Haze, and then he switched over to playing Echo Shard Haze. Yeah. And he plays like more in the line of he didn't play ult Haze as much. Like obviously ult was still very strong, but he played more Echo Shard into like 15 headshots, into silence, into another sleep dagger, into just one shot. So he was like, I actually respected the way he played because it was very much assassinating and less just press 4. There was like an actual rotation to make it happen. And I like that. I respected it.
I didn't mind it. I said to you before the podcast started, I was like, I'm actually kind of, as much as I miss it because it was fun, because you did just get farmed and then press 4 and it was banned.
Yeah.
You just basically like barbarian whirlwind spin and just kill everyone. And it was comedic because obviously by the end of the game, you just couldn't get them out of it. Like it would spin for so long. And then I kind of tried to see how far I could push it, with like, can I use Magic Carpet? Yes, but incredibly slowly. Can I use Refresher? Do it again. But at a certain point, it kind of just, that is all you do. You just press 4 and win most of the time, which is fun. But I did say, like, I missed the dagger builds because that's what I was doing before. It was just dagger, Echo Shard, dagger again. And people hate it because it's equally as annoying, but in its own funny way. So I'm kind of glad that's back. I'm going to start just doing that again. I'll just be daggering everyone. The London Haze.
The London Haze. It still works, and it's good. I think it is good. It takes a little bit more skill to pull off because got to make sure your timings are pretty crisp on it and that you're selecting your targets carefully because it's just a case of someone else comes along. It's like, well, they've also died to the 4. So it's still good. I think 4 still works, honestly. I mean, you can metal skin it now, which is nice. If people are more or less warm into the idea of a lot of times when you go up against the Haze ulting, you all just need to kind of commit to it and take it down, which is good and has been quite a significant way that we've been countering in our games with our friends, which is nice. But yeah, just a bit more coordination on that side. The public just needs to be learned.
I mean, I think in reality, from what I've sort of experienced playing it since the patch, it just kind of feels like early game at least, you're not getting those easy frags for free anymore. Like, you do have to be a little bit more smart with the decision making in terms of the timing. Like, you can't just run into a full HP Yamato and go, I'm just going to spin because I've been buying spirit items, so it's long enough that I'm going to wreck you anyway. Like, you actually do kind of get owned if you just do that now. Or like against guys, you don't just out DPS them. Even if they life swap, you still win. So it's definitely weaker early game. Late game, it doesn't feel as bad, but it doesn't feel anywhere near as overpowered. But again, I think it's one of those now where I'd say, if anything, kind of don't need to use it as much. I think it's because the sort of focus is back again on, like, you can build gun items because they actually have a benefit. You can just focus on shooting people, daggering people, and running around to gank again, which I think was lost with the fact that you just built spirit items and the ult was so good you didn't have to do anything else because you
didn't have to, right? No. Yeah, you didn't have to invest in that, and it's cool because I got a lot of those builds. I think I've seen a lot more people have been building more into gun, but I think a lot of the surge of power, improved cooldown, all this stuff, they still work to an extent, right? And it still extends the ult nice and long, which is cool. But it's more a case of, like, your ult is good in the situations and using it like contextually in fights. It does do a lot of damage. It still lasts quite a long time. It just doesn't have that hybrid aspect to it anymore, where it's difficult to build against it. So I think that's why it was so strong early game, right? It's because it's a case of, well, I can't really afford to buy improved bullet armor and improved spirit armor at the same time. But at least now you're still getting like a lot of benefit off fixation, even with just the burst on that early game. Quite strong if you're building Mystic Burst. You're still getting a bunch of damage off your one as well. So I think Hybrid Haze is still alive, just not as egregious as it used to be.
It's just more, there's actual reasons to be a bit more particular about which items you buy now. Like you say, like, you can surge power it, you can actually have like Quicksilver reload even on the dagger. You start doing that again. You could focus more on like the Echo Shard if you want to buy the 6k item, rather than it literally just being, right, I need spirit, cooldown range, because that's all you would build. It was literally just those three, as long as you tick those boxes, and then it was everything else around that as well, where it's like, do I just buy Diviner's Kevlar so I get the extra defense in the ult and the cooldown reduction? Like, now, do you really need it as much? You're not going to be ulting as much.
You're not even getting the spirit power benefit off Diviner's Kevlar.
That's what I mean, right? So that's another slot where it's like, don't kind of need that. Could go back to buying Echo Shard, which I think is more fun. So I think Dagger is going to be big. That's going to be back, which is cool because I prefer that. And that's actually at least a bit of skill, because it's like when someone sees you hit a sick dagger, they're actually like, oh, that was sick. You've owned that lash. You've owned that guy. And you feel kind of cool with it. And it uses your aim, right? Because it's like a fancy flick. But like, even if you did get a sick, like, 6-man, everyone would be like, oh, he pressed 4.
Oh, he's pressed 4.
That's what I mean.
That was most of your games as well. It's like, when we were winning, it's like, I do some crazy shit on Pocket. Just no one cares. No one cares. They're like, oh yeah, it's just Pocket. I mean, he's played it well though. He's pressed his 2, 1, escape with his 3. And then whenever you did anything that was crazy, it was like, broken character, really boring, just press 4. It's like, I mean, you do need to know timings, I guess, but realistically, you aren't wrong. You aren't wrong.
That's using his ult to just destroy towers, or a Calico's punching everyone. It is madness.
It is funny because we are getting to that point at the moment with characters, and I'm glad that Valve have addressed this in a way, like the Deadlock team, that they've definitely worked on Holiday a little bit. I actually really like what they did with Holiday. I've been playing her a lot recently.
No more stomp stuns.
No more stomp stuns, which is good, because I mean, her kit was already busted. Fast, mate. No more stomp stuns. No more stomp stuns. I like what they did with it, because I think that one of the most annoying aspects was the fact that it was cool the way they balanced it, because the barrels were what most people were upset with, because they knock you up, which is kind of a pseudo stun in a way. It's very frustrating to play against. So first of all, they put a break in the cooldown between throwing the barrels, because if you remember in the past, it was a case where you could throw out barrel after barrel after barrel. You could literally juggle people, which is very funny. And then you remove the stun. So like, I think the aspect that made Holiday quite interesting and unique was that knock up on the barrel. So they didn't touch that. They just take out some of her more egregious problems, which is like the stun on landing, which was a big deal, let's be honest. So now she has just more ability to get around the map with the cooldown reduction on the tier 1, And I've been building Crayon's build recently, which is like kind of hybrid between gun and spirit. And I was surprised how much damage Crackshot's doing. It's crazy. So she's by no means bad anymore. I think she's in a good space. On the other hand, I do want to keep talking about Haze just a little bit because we have seen Play With Me playing it a little bit in the tournaments recently. He's still really struggling to make it work. And I don't know what you changed because fundamentally I think Haze got one of the coolest kits in the game. Like, I really like everything Haze does. She doesn't perform to a high level. Now I'm wondering if they're just not touching it because we have seen, I think it was three items that I know are confirmed to be coming at some point, which are in the file. Maybe not confirmed at all. Who knows? But I know that there's 3 extra items that have been added. Maybe 6 if we are to believe people on the internet. So maybe it's a case that we're rebalancing some items in the future. Maybe that's what fixes Haze, maybe some new possibilities. And they're hesitant on changing characters too much because there is a rebalance in items coming. Who knows? So that could be the case. But yeah, it's difficult right now because you do have a lot of heroes that desperately need tuning, but Valve is holding off for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think that makes sense as well because, like, at least to a degree, we're getting patches like this where it kind of just comes out of the blue and it fixes some things, which I think were at least the kind of bigger concerns that, like, we had, some other people had, right? Which was, like, go in, fix jungle a little bit, which they kind of have tried to. They've sort of changed it up a little bit, messed with the timings, made respawns more aggressive, all this kind of stuff that I'm sure we'll get into more in depth as it goes on. But you can see what they're working towards, which I think is the bigger issue of, like, who are the major problems right now? Okay, bang, you're upset with Sinclair in lane. You're upset with Spirit Haze. You're not enjoying how Holiday's being used against you. We'll tweak those a little bit, which fair enough. I don't think any of the rebalances there were that egregious. I think it all makes sense. Like, we were always saying how ridiculous it felt early game with Sinclair. He just banged you out. He did so much damage. The double vexing bolt, just assistant base damage anyway. It was gross. So, like, the changes there, I think that's fine. That's completely acceptable. The Holiday rework, I think, is good. Like you say, I always wanted her to be more that kind of aim hero where it did rely on, like, if you are really talented at mobility and headshots, you're rewarded for it. But it wasn't that on launch. No. It was anything but that. It was literally just spam barrels, dive through the air. Sure, if you hit someone with crack shot once every hour, good job, buddy. Like, that's what sucked for me. So I'm glad if they move it more in the direction of, like, give gun items some love again. Let her be that, where it's like, look, it's like a Deagle in CS, man. You hit that headshot, you're doing well. Like, that's what I feel like the point of her character should be. And the movement elements around it should be supplementary to get her into vantage points, let her aggress. She basically is supposed to be like, you know, third-person shooter Bat Rider. Like, she jumps in, cracks you in the face, lassos you, drags you back into the back line, then you die just from the overall damage there. But I feel like she wasn't that at all. She was just a barrel demon.
Yeah, I think that was more of a case of, like, how the kit was created, that people just weren't really fully optimized for it. And it's curious because I think like a month ago, I think Ado started throwing out some videos. Ido? I think it's Ido. Pretty sure it's Ido. Who knows? At this point. My accent. We'll go with the accent.
There you go.
The accent excuse.
It's always the safe one. It's worked for me for 10 years.
Yeah, I think he released a video on Holiday, and he's probably my most favorite player to watch playing that character because his movement was really slick on it. Yeah. Like, the ability to move through the air, that speed was crazy. And I think he actually did use crack shot, like, probably as it was intended, because he would hit the stun into the barrel, into a headshot, and it was an effective just one bang combo, right? Yeah. Which is what they've tried to reduce here. And I think that's why Holiday got nerfed first out of all the others, is that although Calico, Yamato right now, both quite disgusting characters, may be in need of some adjustments, some tuning, I think the fact of the matter is that Yamato and Calico aren't one-shotting you, right? They aren't just one comboing you. There's not a one-cycle mechanic there, whereas on Holiday there absolutely was. So I'm glad they changed that, but I think you're right. I think people will start moving more into the case of crack shot's going to be very strong, be able to hit those headshots, because a gun does a crap ton of damage. Yeah, this will be good. This will be good for the character.
No, 100%. I think it's a better direction to go in. Also, I feel like it's one of those where if Valve want to weed out who all the cheaters are, just start looking at who's got the highest headshot percentage consistently with crack shot builds, because that's all you come up against when people play her and are cheating. They're just like, well, I'm gonna kill you again.
I did a test for this yesterday. You'll laugh at this. I checked out. I typed in holiday and banned yesterday in the Deadlock main Discord, right? Where there was a case of what would come up was literally just loads of people saying, "Hey Valve, just want you to let you know that I've been playing Gun Holiday and I'd like you to repeal my ban. People think I'm cheating all the time." It's like,
probably were, mate.
Probably were though, weren't you? Yeah. I mean, if it gets to that point, it's like, obvious you're going to get a ban. Yeah. It's probably one of the most obvious characters because you not only are you getting headshot multiple times, you're hearing the ping, ping, ping.
Yeah.
So she must be getting the resets on crack shot frequently enough.
You're aware of the timing. You're always hitting the headshot, and it's also those people that are doing it to you are bounce padding like absolute maniacs, where they literally just get high to hit you.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, you're air strafing, diving through the air, constantly hitting me in the head, 100% headshot ratio. You just don't see it because it doesn't show you the stat. It's just like, well, this is mad. It's like it's super obvious when you come up against it. Yeah, man.
I am curious though if there are like actually just some sick aimers out there who have just been reported enough on holiday.
I don't think you would though, because that's the thing. Like I've seen also, I just how hard it is to get banned right now with how many people like I've seen cheating. They've been cheating for months to get away with it. If you are that unfortunate that you've been manually reported enough times that you got banned, I would be absolutely gobsmacked. Because people would always say that in CS as well, where it would be like, oh, I have been overwatched and I've never cheated. And it's just like, you probably did, mate. I'm not going to lie. Like, the only false positives with that are on like a very few weird instigations where it was like pro players, but then obviously Valve does manually review it. And if it is a mess up, they would unban you. But if it's like Gregster472, who has just been hitting everyone in the head with 100% headshot ratio, 4 Vac Bans on record, 12 Smurf accounts, all of them play Deadlock with Vac Bans, probably not, mate. You probably are just a mentalist.
You're a cheater. You're a cheater.
I've said this to you many times.
Yeah, I know.
Hands down believe if you are playing a Valve game on Steam and you have a Vac Ban on record, you shouldn't be allowed to play. If it's a free-to-play game, it should just say you unfortunately have a Vac Ban, you're not allowed to play. The only caveat to that should be if your ban is older than 10 years, because I'll let you off. If you got banned in Source when you were like 12 years old or something, or you got banned in a Modern Warfare 2 cheated lobby, you know what? You served your time. But if you are cheating in any other game, you have anywhere like 9 years onwards, whatever recent Vac Ban, you should not be allowed to play a free-to-play game on Steam. You should just be outright banned forever.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it makes no sense.
It's even worse with Deadlock, isn't it? Really, because it's not only is it free to play, it's a play test. I do think you're not giving good. I think if you've had multiple Vac Bans in the space, and a lot of them are recent when we look at it. I think if you've had multiple Vac Bans recently, I don't really think you should be play testing Deadlock.
Well, no, because it's for a fact they're clicking skip every time on a match feedback. Never gone on the forums, because especially now where like forum accounts aren't mandatory, there's no way any of those people are doing anything. They're literally just smurfing to cheat because it's like the new hotness to cheat on or whatever. Yeah. It's so annoying. Like, that's what I mean. You just shouldn't be allowed to. You just shouldn't be allowed to play the game. If you've got a Vac Ban, it's unfortunate, mate. You just shouldn't have cheated. Like, grow up.
Yeah, it's just how that happens. So I think that should be a consideration in the future, for sure. It's just like, if you got Vac Ban, just get off.
Yeah. I don't know why that's not the case, because it stopped like repeat smurfs with CS and stuff as well. I always never got why, like, I get why Valve doesn't ever do like kernel level anti-cheats, and I support that and don't think that's a good direction. I think that's like objectively bad. Hasn't even fixed other games that have tried to do it. It just bricks PCs for no reason, which the companies try and cover up, which I know even like with my fucking motherboard. I remember this was like the Valorant beta or whatever. Installed Vanguard, bro. Next day, my motherboard was just dead. Wouldn't even turn on. Literally fully bricked my PC. It's like multiple reports this happening. Right, just say, nah. Never us. Never happen. So like kernel level anti-cheats are bad. But I don't know why Valve don't do like hardware ID bans. Because it would just at least mitigate Smurf somewhat. Just make it a little bit harder for them. Hardware ID bans, you're not allowed to play if you've got a Vac Ban on record. Bosh. Done. There you go. Just do it that way. It would at least filter out some of the absolute lunatics that keep coming back.
Yeah, because it has been... And I mean, like, the case is... That is a different cat. The cat hasn't just grown in the 5 minutes that he's been on there.
It's equivalent exchange. He's
it is, yeah.
switched out.
But yeah, so I think that for the amount of cheaters that we run into and how egregious they are, like,
yeah,
it is becoming a little bit of a problem because they're not even trying to be subtle about it these days either. It's just a case of just headshotting you constantly. They play Bebop, they play Vindictor, or they play Holiday, and it's like those three characters keep coming back over and over again. So it has become a little bit frustrating. I think that a lot of time, like, to be honest with you, recently, I was saying this to you yesterday, that I haven't actually played against a huge amount of cheaters. I think that's partly because when I queue, I'm like queuing Phantom Oracle, and then when we queue our friends, we're like Emissary. And I don't think there's like a massive amount of cheaters in those brackets. Maybe Phantom, possibly, as they make their way up to Eternus. But yeah, I mean, even yesterday we saw some guy on stream like deboosting, like so that they could once again rank up from Emissary and have some fun blasting some noobs.
It's also mad because you get that, and then you get the other one, which is where it's like it is literally like 6 stacks where 2 of them cheat just to boost people. But I've never understood that in any regard anyway, because it's like, bro, it's especially worse than Deadlock, because it's like the ELO actually doesn't mean anything at all. None of it's real. It's all going to disappear one day.
Yeah.
Like, the whole thing is just like, you might play better games and improve if you keep winning. That could be handy in future, buddy. But, like, boosting in Deadlock to get to Eternus, to what? To lose every game because you are terrible? Like... And then obviously people are going to know if you're queued with cheaters. And it's the same faces. Most of them are streamers. Most of them are known. So it's like everyone's going to sniff you out. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's just like, dude, what are you doing? But that's like super common where you run into those. I think it's weird because you find them, or obviously you queue into them sometimes if they're boosting people or if they're D-ranking. Or the occasional guy who's downloaded like some kind of weird Deadlock public cheat, I guess. But then I imagine it stops at a certain point where they bloat towards the top end, and then they're just there, and I guess they give up because there isn't an end goal. Like there's not anything to be gained by it. It's just weird. It's always perplexed me. Like the idea of cheating in online video games, I've never understood it my entire life. Don't think I ever will. It's just people love doing it to be like, haha, I have tilted you. Look how good I am. But it's like,
they say it as well. They say it on chat. And I think this is the problem that we're running into, because I think we talked about this a couple of times now on the podcast. It does bear mentioning again, and I think that genuinely, like you say, if you've got a Vac Ban on record, I don't think you should be in the playtest personally.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. Like, sorry, brother.
Sorry, like, I think people actually want to playtest this game and make it better for the future, and you coming in and cheating does not help that regard. Or you coming in and with the hint that you might cheat is just not good for the game.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, if it looks like a rat and it acts like a rat, it probably is a rat. Like that's what I mean. The giant rat makes all the rules, you know?
Yeah.
But it's also just like, I get it. Like, that's what I'm saying. If it's like a 10-year-old Vac Ban, maybe you were a child, it's one Vac Ban on record from 30,000 days ago or whatever.
Someone got 5 on record.
But yeah,
what is that?
When you're literally obviously an account that's going from Vac to Vac to Vac, I don't know how at that point, like the Valve anti-cheat system doesn't just go, right, well, unfortunately, you are now flagged to never be allowed to connect to any multiplayer servers ever. Or, you know what? If you do have a Vac Ban, you're allowed to play Deadlock, but only in low priority queue forever.
Yeah. Get wrecked.
You know what
100%.
I mean? I saw that as well, by the way. People were commenting on the latest patch notice, and they were like, please, can you tell Valve to make it so to get out of low priority isn't as hard? And it's like, mate, if you somehow ended up in low priority, what were you doing? You know what I mean? You must have just been screaming mental stuff at people for games on end, leaving every game. Like, sorry, bro, you deserve to be there.
When the game was relatively small and it didn't have the massive community it has now, there was games I'd play with a certain guy who I shall not name, and when he was in the matches, he would spew some absolute obscenities. A couple of weeks later, I queued him again, completely muted, couldn't use voice chat or anything like that, and I never saw him again because he was low priority queue.
Yeah, he was taken out.
Yeah, as soon as you get to that point, very, very obvious. I've literally seen it. Those people 100% deserve to be in low priority queue. Yeah. It's hard to get there in the first place. It is very hard to get there. It's not easy, right?
Yeah, it's not like you leave one game low priority or you type your dog. That's it. Like you really have to be out of your
try.
mind for weeks on end. And also, you need people to report you as well. So it's like, it's just mental to me. It's like, what do you mean? Make it easier for me to get out a low priority queue.
I mean,
why are you there?
I think Leafa got put in it towards the beginning, and everyone was saying he was in low priority jail, but he got out. It took him a couple of weeks, but he got out. It wasn't the case he was there forever.
Because it is like perpetual torture, though, which I find quite funny. Because basically, if you're in low priority, like you have to win, like,
with other people.
Yeah, you have to win like 10 games, and you're around people that are acting how you were acting. So it's like, deal with that, buddy.
Yeah.
Whole game with 12 people that all hate each other and don't want to be there. Like,
yeah, it's good. It's good. It's a good way to do it, in my opinion. But yeah, I think we talked about cheating before, and honestly, I'll never understand it. I don't think you'll understand it. I don't think anyone's watching this will understand it either, because I'm assuming you're all very decent and reasonable people, and we appreciate you for being here. But yeah, I don't know what the fix is, and it'll be up to Valve in the future to figure out what they want to do with it. But in the meantime,
it's also one of those though where like you put the frog system in, but I haven't actually seen that in a very long time.
I've not seen a frog since.
That's what I mean. Yeah. It's been forever. I don't even know if it still works in the same way. The other thing is like it's kind of been the same thing like with Counter-Strike, where for years, the whole idea has been you need some sort of actual anti-cheat to do it. They've been working on that for a very long time, whereas basically the whole process was like you data train an AI off of Overwatch. So obviously from all those cases of people doing stuff, you have that knowledge and you're able to do it. But I think the problem that we now run into is like cheats have advanced so much that to a degree, the layer of like hardware cheats, the level of stuff that's coming in as well. Like, dude, you can get like monitors now that have like AI chips built into them, like the next wave of monitors, and you can data train those monitors. Like Asus are doing it and stuff like that. So imagine like you're playing League of Legends, for example. Yeah. They gave out like a showcase where they were like, you can train your monitor off your League of Legends gameplay, so it like pings the sides of the monitors if it detects someone should be coming towards your lane because they've left certain points on the minimap.
Oh my god!
So like that's the thing. Like
why
gaming in that sense.
Involved in this as well, dude.
Because it sells, bro. It sells. Like they've done it for years. You think about like Razer with SnapTap, right?
Yeah, I saw that annoyed me as well.
Like you could have done that in CS for years with nullbinds, basically the same thing. But they realized like this was a thing, it's a small minority. If we sell it as like a benefit to people are going to buy it. You're going to pay for an advantage, right? It's just where the certain line is drawn. My only hope from this is if we do go down that route, it will force it back to being like more local lands will be relevant again. Because obviously if you play online, it's just going to be like, bro, ranked is what ranked is. That guy might have like a AI monitor, a mouse with cheats built in. Like, it's unlucky, dude. He's just got more money than you. That's just the way it is. But if you go to like a local LAN event, at least there is some kind of degree of like fairness where it's like, okay, we've checked, no one's got any cheats in their mice. No one's got any AI monitors. Like everyone can play some fair deadlock on LAN. And I actually think that would kind of be better. I miss the idea of like local LANs, qualifiers like that being more prevalent again.
Yeah, they don't happen enough. And I would be very happy to see more of it because we did go like very heavy online.
It was COVID. COVID just switched everything online because it was far less expensive. So it kind of like really drove the needle of like, just scrap all the LAN qualifiers, put everything online.
Which was sad because I do think people love LAN qualifiers. People love joining them, and I think it hurt the community a little bit. I think it definitely. I will say this: it helped in terms of costs, and there was more tournaments because of it. But at the same time, you didn't have that sense of like. Let's look at Overwatch League, for example. Obviously, that didn't go terribly well, but the community that they were able to derive from that was very hardcore. Like they did fill the stands a lot. Yeah. Like the tickets were sold. People very often turned up for those events, and they had great shots from the camera viewers. Like, look at the crowd that's here. Like they love the game, which is very cool. And I think that they succeeded in that aspect of creating and driving communities around esports. People like supported players in a big way, and they created names. So that was cool. So yeah, I'd be glad to bring that back if it means that AI monitors are the limiting factor there. So that'd be cool. But yeah, we'll see what happens with it in the future. Because right now, I think there isn't like a massive amount of tournaments sprouting up around Deadlock right now. I think we're still waiting for everything to get finished before Production House gets involved.
Well, that's what I mean. I think it's more one of those as well, though, where like realistically, if you're going to invest, you're going to put money into it, run these events religiously. you want the game to be in a state where, especially for most eyes now, like the average viewer base for a lot of these video games, they want it to look pretty, like from a viewer standpoint, if they're going to come in and spend their time watching it. And obviously Deadlock is going more that direction. We're getting the artwork going in, we're getting things sort of tightened up. Once it's in that state and it actually is just playable as well, which obviously is the thing that like, I always come back to, the minute you have a play button on Steam is like the night and day difference of the go switch being flipped, the floodgates being opened. Because even right now, I see it time and time again where like on Patch Notice or on the podcast, people comment and they'll be like, how do you get access? Can you still play this game? Is it still possible to get an invite?
Yeah.
And it's just like, not everyone has a friend who can get them in. Once that happens, you can just click play. It's on there, front page Steam, bosh. That's all Valve need to do. It will skyrocket. It's like the most wishlisted game on Steam. It's going to do numbers from there. That's where I think you'll get that esports side massively pop off. It's just obviously, again, right, like there really isn't that many games that have already as established of a grassroots sort of ecosystem as Deadlock has when it's in kind of an alpha test, Yeah. Some games did, if they had like the optics of being big in the future, right? Like when Valorant was in its beta, everyone was trying to run tournaments because they knew this is going to be supported, this is going to go somewhere, so it's away in early.
Almost finished at that point as well.
Exactly, but that's a fake beta. That's like a modern gaming beta. We spoke about this before, where like you're shipping the finished game as a demo to drum up hype, whereas this is actually legitimately a test where we're seeing the game change before our eyes. It's very different already now, like 8 months later. It's probably going to be very different in another 8 months from where it was when it's actually already out and all that stuff. But I think like everything will come for it and you'll get these events. I do wonder as well what it's going to be like on LAN, though, like how it would feel. Because I think Deadlock feels really good, especially after the update with the tick rate as well. It feels nice to play. It feels responsive, feels crisp. But I feel like Deadlock on a LAN server could be unreal. Like it could actually feel so good. Because sometimes the annoying things is like the desync, the moments where it does feel like, oh, dude, that never should hit me. That hook, I've dodged it. How's that grapple grabbed me? Like, how's that punch hit me? I think actually having a LAN server where there's literally no latency, no desync, because one of the biggest contributors to that, I feel like, is the ping. You notice it. If you're like playing on NA servers or you've got people that are, even 60 to 40 ping difference, it's noticeable that it's there. Get everyone on 0 ping, on LAN, in a LAN center. I feel like the game would feel absolutely incredible because Source feels so good on LAN as well.
Yeah, people will love it when it comes through. Because I know that there have been multiple times already where it's a case of like, well, we lost that. Even viewers are like, well, they lost that game because of ping. It was a ping diff, that game. And it is, like you say, very obvious when you're playing on a separate server, which sometimes we get thrown into as well, like on NA servers. It's almost impossible to last it a lot of times. It's very, very difficult. So I do think that, having LAN games for Deadlock will be very cool. That and the fact that I think, what's quite interesting is that the people who play Deadlock are all very interesting personalities. I think that that's one of the coolest parts about this is that I'm excited to see how these people perform on LAN and what like the interviews are going to be like with those people as well, which is very cool. And again, for you guys at home, like being able to join those LANs could be very cool too.
Oh yeah, because I think especially like that's actually kind of the fun thing where there is a nice variety of people where it's not another one of those games that pops up where you have like the backlog of people that just come on over because they couldn't make it in the last esport and they try again here. You actually have like so many people from different scenes, endemic to Deadlock as well, that have just sort of popped up just for this game. And there's a variety, as you say, like the people that absolutely love giving it. They're loudmouths, they're energetics, they want to just get out there and showvote. What are they going to be like on LAN? If they actually played LANs before, it's a very different game. Like most of the games as well that a lot of those players come from don't really have a LAN scene or a LAN client. So you throw them into that environment. How do they perform? That'll be fun to see. And then you get the other side where it's like you've got some people that are absolutely sick of the game, but they wouldn't say boo to a ghost. You know what I mean? Like they're quiet, sheepish. And you're going to throw them in a room with like everyone else in front of them. 11 other people.
Well there.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like you'd see how it works because some of them like they don't do interviews, they don't really talk at all, right? You're going to throw them into that environment where you're going to be on camera, you're going to be doing interviews, you're going to have us shouting over you whilst you play, and you're there with your noise cancelling headphones on. It's going to be scary for some people. So it'll be interesting because I feel like that's the cool thing. It's like there actually isn't that many people that have got a super big LAN repertoire already in the scene, which is why it's kind of fun because like that is the difference. Like as soon as we get to that point in Deadlock where you've got religious LAN events, like you've got people repeatedly going to these time and time again, traveling to different places as well. So I think that's the other cool thing with Deadlock is like it's one of those games where it's not as if your viewer base is like in Counter-Strike, just mainland Europe,
Yeah.
places like that, where it's like, okay, well, it makes sense to go to like Antwerp, go to Stockholm, stuff like that, and keep it in circulation where the majority of the fans can go and watch. You've got an NA player base, you've got a UK player base, you've got mainland Europe, you've got fans in Asia as well. So there's opportunities where, like, dude, if you do an event in like Japan, you do an event in America, you could do an event literally in New York, something like that, to drum up hype, get that connection. You know what I mean? I think it'd be sick. I think there's actually a lot more you could do with Deadlock from a thematic sense. Bro, that's the other thing as well. Like, I love CS events, but I'll be real with you. Most of the time it's just studios. That's what we do. It's just different studios, slightly different vibe, right? There used to be some events where they'd be themed. Doesn't really happen as much anymore. Dota crushes it, especially TI. Shout out PGL, my boy Seb and Andre. Every time they do an event, bro, like they kill it in terms of the thematics, the way they do it. Like, you know what I mean? You do that with Deadlock, we could go balls to the walls with decorations, theming. It feels like it's one of those games where it has so much more to it in terms of personality. It's not just the CT versus T, put some boxes in a room, studio, bosh. It is literally like...
Put M4s on the wall.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, there's more to it. You can have that mystical element. You could have like steampunk ass setup. You could have all this weird stuff. Put us in a big sewer full of rats.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think that's what they've done. Very purposeful a lot of times. With the personality of the game is that there are multiple factions as well that you could even do for that thing, which is super cool. Like you could have the Paradox's squad as well, like their whole thing be a studio. You could have Dynamo aspect of a studio as well, where it's all like quantum based and techie.
Even that for like a side segment. Like you cut over to like the Dynamo desk, and it's literally like, you know, like a university sort of setup with the whiteboard, and you're like breaking down a play. Exactly. Like there's so much more that you could do with it. I feel like that'd be sick.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the reasons why Deadlock will definitely be successful. I think that it's a funny thing, right, where you hear a lot of streamers these days that talk about Deadlock. I see it more now, where it's like they're looking at the new game. Like, I mean, Fragpunk looked very fun. I played a little bit of it. It was pretty good. You know, there was... I mean, it was all right. It was all right.
But yeah, like all of these games, they're just fake clones of Counter-Strike. Like it's pointless.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. Right, okay, so like, I played a lot of these new games coming out. Played a little bit of Marvel Rivals as well.
For 5 hours.
Never played it again. Exactly. Enjoyed my time.
Spent £8.50 on skins.
A bit more than that.
There we go.
But Malice skin. But then I went straight back to Deadlock. Because it has a lot of personality and fun, and it's my game of choice, right? So the game I'm passionate about. And I know there are a lot of people out there who are passionate about it. Point being is that there are still these streamers who are jumping to the next big thing, but whenever they talk about Deadlock, it always comes to a case of, probably will be the big thing for a long time in the future.
Yeah.
Like, when it comes out, I will be coming back to it.
Because that's what Valve do. They make crack in video game form.
Yes.
Like, they give you a taste of Counter-Strike at age 11, and you're like, oh, I really enjoy Source. 14,000 hours later, they give you CSGO, and it happens all over again. And then they go, look how pretty we've made it. And now you can blow open the smokes. Have some CS2.
I do love that.
You know what I mean? It just keeps you going. You always come back, because you play something else, and you're like, oh, I've had enough of that. But CS is always there waiting. It's the same with Deadlock, where, like, as soon as you get into it, 12 hours a night, every single night, that's all you're doing. And then it becomes a problem where you're not sleeping, you're not doing anything else.
It is.
You know, you're trying to slot other things in around Deadlock, but that's the main focus of the day. Suddenly your relationships are falling apart. Like, it all happens. You know what I mean?
It is funny.
That's what Valve does.
It is funny because, like, CS2, there is so much conversation online at the moment where it's like, oh, it's not as good as CSGO. You know, like, maybe it's not for me. It's like, yesterday they hit like an all new concurrent peak.
And beat the player peak again. Yeah.
Beat the player peak again. It's like, as much as there is that conversation, like you say, it is crack. People keep coming back to it. And they keep getting other people hooked on it as well.
I'd be real. Like, for that as well, people in the Counter-Strike community love to complain. That is all they do. But they will complain about anything and say, I wish I had this map and this map was gone. And then they give you that map and they go, I wish I had the other map. It's like, people just love complaining about it. Like, you just don't know what they want ever. They just love yapping. Like, that is Counter-Strike. It's just been around for so long. It's like nearly like 30 years of playing CS. people are so burnt in the idea of this was better before, but they're still going to play 12 hours a day and love every minute of it, of course. Like, it's the same thing with Deadlock, where it's so easy to just get wrapped up and play it and play it and play it. I think that's the difference as well, is like the easy way to separate that is in an age where everyone that streams and everyone that's personality, everyone that's like opinion is listened to by anyone, all they do is farm the idea of like outrage gets clicks. So they're going to sit there, they're going to moan, they're going to say, this is bad, this is dying, this game sucks. But with Deadlock, it's actually like a way lower percentage, where I feel like you see the conversion rate of that, of most of the people won't say that. They'll just kind of be like, yeah, I actually really like the game, defend the game. I'm just waiting for X. I'm waiting for release. I'm waiting for skins. I'm waiting for something. Everyone that isn't playing right now always seems to be that the sentiment is, it's not they don't like the game, it's not they're angry at it. They're just waiting for what they think is, you know, the next relevant step. And I get that. Like, some people came back with free lanes. Some people come back with balance changes. Some people are waiting for skins. Some people are waiting for the full shebang, like the full release. And I think that's valid, because it is a different game. Like, it is one of those where, you know, some people want different things from it.
I think that there is a big aspect as well here that I think we've missed out on a lot too. And I have like listened to what the community says, especially on our videos too, where it's a case of a lot of people will say that right now one of the most difficult parts of coming back to the game is that there is a large amount of the community that is playing non-stop. And they really haven't stopped since the start.
Oh, yeah.
They're so difficult to play against right now because emissary games, the skill level is really high, actually. Where they know everything, they understand how it all works, they know all the items. So if you're a new player coming into it, it is actually really difficult for you to join and put into a game and start learning it without being called out, because the elo just doesn't decay either. So if you're Archon when Archon meant Archon, and you come back, it's like you just get stomped in the game. Now, I think that it's completely reasonable for those people to be like, look, I'm going to wait, because as soon as that new play button comes, play button comes through, then you have a huge influx of all the new players. And I think it's completely reasonable if people want to wait for that to come back at a time where everyone is learning the game alongside them, instead of having to keep up with people who love the game like ourselves. Like, in a way, we are actually definitely part of the problem in that aspect, where we know so much about the game, and in our matches, I think sometimes I expect maybe a little bit too much out of players, because perhaps they're just coming back to test the game a little bit more. So I do think it's fair. It would be nice to have more people playing the game and trying to learn it for themselves, because I think you said this multiple times as well, Jacky, is if you give the game like a week, 4 days even, you can get into it quite quickly. But it is just that difficulty of like, there is just a huge amount of people right now who are quite difficult to play with because they are so good at the game, and coming back is a little bit daunting. So I think that it's a lot more people. The golden lining to this is that when that play button does come through, I think you will see a lot more people than we ever expected to suddenly start playing the game, because that's what most people are waiting for, is an influx of new players to learn the game alongside with, instead of learning the game with 11 other people who expect you to know all the techs and the most efficient way to take the to the other side of the map. Turn into Gordon Ramsay for a second there.
Well, and it's also like the easy solution to that as well, is all you do is, like we said before, you just flag all new accounts that have never played before that point in their own brackets. They only get queued into one another. You reset all the elo. Otherwise, keep hidden MMR.
Actually, a great idea.
You know what I mean? You just send people in. So, like, we get queued into a hidden MMR with no elo. It adjusts slightly based on the games. You get a rank. Go back to a system where there is ranked matchmaking. Maybe, again, make every account play 50 unranked games all over again. You know what I mean? And just have that sort of process, but separate it and don't tell them it's separate until they've also played enough games, or it's like, cool, okay, they've played 15 games now, we'll put them in the global pool. So they're not going to have an experience where, unless it's some guy smurfing on launch, which you have to be some sort of crazy man anyway, to like really ruin other people's days, I guess. You're going to give people generally a better experience, and then I think it all works out okay. And then like you get some form of rank system that actually has a bit more depth to it again, seasonal leaderboard, something like Premiere and CS2, like give people an elo, give people
might be a great
reset.
Idea.
You know what I mean? Because I think that's all people need.
I think they need a reset. Yeah,
like, because
I liked
it when it was a week. It was a week every week. You got a new rank, and that was cool. I actually like that system. I thought, at most, make it 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks it resets. That's already, if iterated on, a way better system of how Premiere does it in CS2. But instead, they obviously realized, okay, the player pool actually isn't big enough for this right now. We've got the data from testing ranked as a concept. Remove it for now, but keep the ranked badges, which I think was the worst way to do it. Because now everyone's got an inflated sense of ego. It's very aggressive. The games are getting super like aggro in terms of leveling up, but none of it means anything. It will be deleted eventually anyway. And even if you know that, it's hard to convince yourself of that sometimes. We feel like, why doesn't this person know this? Why are you not aware of this weird, obscure technique that you have to do to make that 10% better? What are you doing?
I think it's fantastic. I'd not thought of it that way before, but yeah, I genuinely like a low priority queue. Instead of putting you in jail, we put you in a safe space. Yeah, exactly. Which is probably the best way to go about this. Just new player queue.
Because they're not going to have their experience ruined as well. Because that's the other thing is I feel like sometimes you try a game. If you get into a game like first game, you're thrown in like on NA servers, and it's like you and your 4 homies versus young Calc and a stack. You're probably not going to have a good time, man.
GG.
Like, you're probably just going to get owned. Do you know what I mean? That's like a 5-minute game. It's going to skew your idea of what the game is. You're going to be like, well, this was terrible. I just died 30 times.
Yeah. I mean, I think we had like a duo yesterday. I felt bad for them because I think they must have been new. But they died like, what was it, 20 times the first 15 minutes?
Like, it was real bad.
0 and 10.
Real bad.
Yeah, pretty bad. Actually brings me on to another point because I do think that we've spoken a lot about that, and I think that we should definitely tell Valve about this if we can, about getting a new player queue set up and potentially resetting the ranks. And you guys can tell us in the comments below what you think about a rank reset, because I think that would be a great idea. I think that my rank means nothing. Currently Oracle 4. I don't think I'm an Oracle 4 player personally. There you go. But I think talking about that in terms of the laning phases, if we could move on to that very quickly before we go through all the other changes that came through. I think right now there is a difficulty where I find, and I'm not sure how bad this problem will get, but if there is a lane that is significantly worse, or at least on an outer lane, than everyone else in the lobby, it is hellish. Yeah. You lose your walker at like 12 minutes. If sometimes people are losing walkers at 8 minutes. There is no teleporters up until that 8-minute mark. No one can TP across to help you. It's very hard to leave your lane without losing Blue Guardian if you are mid, because losing Blue Guardian basically means they have access to your whole jungle at that point. So you can't really help. And by the time they're taking that walk, they've got such a massive influx of space on the map as well as soul count that you just lose. And I find that that's really difficult, where the game becomes a 2v2 just in various areas of the map. There's not much you can do about it. It doesn't feel very team-based. And like, if you're in a situation where you're mid and your side lane on the other side of the map is in a stalemate, where you know you haven't lost the lane, you haven't won the lane either, that's usually fine, because then you just build up into the mid game. Those lanes just physically cannot help, because you cannot you cannot leave that lane at that point without putting yourself at a massive disadvantage. And those games feel like a real testament to just futility, where there's nothing you can do. So I'm not sure how they want to fix that. Because I do think like ganking just feels out the window early game.
Because I feel like it's worse now as well, because especially with the respawn curve changes, like if you leave and die, both lanes are gone. And it's just like, as soon as that first domino falls, of like you realize, okay, like green lane is inting. If you go
can't help them.
Like, that's what I mean. If you go over, you're inting both lanes. Because now the solo guy in your lane is going to die. It's going to take Atrian to respawn. You're probably going to die, because the 3 versus 2 probably isn't going to be good enough, because they're already fed, especially if it's like a Bebop. That guy's miles ahead already, because he's just been getting bomb stacks off for free. So you lose both Guardians, maybe even the Walker on the other side that's already had a rough start.
Yeah.
And then like, how do you even come back from that? Because then they just all group up mid, battle the whole way down mid, your Guardian and your Walker's gone, you've got nothing left on the map.
Yeah.
And then it's like 15 minutes in of just slogging around going, what do we even do? Like, how do we actually even fundamentally get back into this? And I think that's the problem, is where it does feel kind of raw. Like, it just feels like there is no easy way back in.
Yeah.
You can't help these people as well, because it's like, it's so sad as well, where they're like, please, can you come green and help? And it's like, bro, if I leave now, like, we might not even win that fight, and we're just throwing. We're literally throwing both lanes. And they don't understand, because they're like, why would you not rotate and help me? And it's like, bro, because if I come there, everything's fucked.
It's so frustrating, because I think this is the one situation where I genuinely think that flow from mid to late game right now is actually really good. I think it's in such a good spot. Early game just is so tough. And I think it's one of those few situations where I'm like, is role queue maybe a thing that they want to consider doing, or just like have the community decide that's happening? In which case they might have to switch the items up a little bit, because I genuinely think at this point having a jungler would be the ideal situation to this. Is to have someone who can help across the map in that early game. We still have that aspect of team-based gameplay. I do think it's important, just even having a mid lane where you have a Geist and then you have a Talon. People really do benefit off of getting that mid lane dominance and can clear waves and keep that mid lane Guardian up. And if a jungler goes out, I mean, we know how important supports are. A lot of the high-end lobbies always run with either an Ivy or a Kelvin. It's difficult. It is really difficult. And I think that the way MOBA's done it in the past is where they just kind of let that meta develop. But within Deadlock, there is no itemization for junglers. There is no way that you can start jungling minute 1 in the match because the creeps don't physically spawn. And that would be one solution. But I think that it is a solution that bears fruit, because right now, like I said, it does feel like up until 10 minutes, you aren't playing a team game, you're playing duos versus duos.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think it's just a weird one where it's gotten worse because obviously you've kind of reduced the sort of rotations between lanes. You can't really gank as easy. It felt like also as well, if you were really unlucky, maybe you had a bad player in the solo lanes, but before it was at least like kind of a good player versus another good player. You win or lost your lane. Maybe you'd rotate over to help other people, or they'd come to help you, and it was obviously shorter, so that kind of worked out that way. Whereas now it is literally just blue lane is so vastly important that leaving it just feels fundamentally like suicide.
It's
like
wrong.
Not going to work. Yeah,
can't do it.
And the other guys can't get from the other side of the map very easily whatsoever. So I don't even know if it's just a matter of maybe, I don't know, you change it to like at 5 minutes, just the one yellow to green TP opens. But then you have the issue of if this is already happening and someone's snowballing already, it's probably just going to get worse.
I think
it's not going to let you get there quickly and save it is the other thing.
What do you think about this though? Because I think that other games do this as well, where Guardians at least, I think up until that 8-minute mark where teleporters open, I think Guardians should have some kind of early game protection where they take less damage.
I don't know why they don't, because I think it's like it felt like that used to be how it worked, where I'm pretty sure they used to be tankier in the early game and they got basically weaker over time, where you do more damage to Guardians because that made sense. Like they were supposed to be a bit more sturdy in the initial laning phase because it arbitrarily gave you sort of a start and end time of the laning phase because it kind of needs one, right? Like that's the point. Whereas now it just feels like they're made of paper and you can run in, don't even really have to parry the melee half the time, especially with like flying characters and stuff like that. You just
you just
get away with it for free. And I get it. Like it's the same kind of thing in Dota where like Dota players are always like, you're supposed to be defending them. If they're cold, you're cold. Like it's a dog. Like, you know what I mean? But it's like, yeah, I get that, right? Like I am defending the Guardian, not the other way around. It's not like protecting me, but also it should attack someone. Like if someone is floating and shooting at it within range, it should shoot them. I feel like it also used to work that way, where it prioritized the hero that was attacking it, not the creep. Now I feel like it doesn't know what it's doing unless it's me, because then it will. Then it will like instantly target me and beam my lips off and go, oh, fuck you, Haze.
I think that's absolutely right, because there's a lot of times where, someone will attack me on the tower and the Guardian will attack a creep, a trooper.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are you focusing down that one specific trooper? What has he done to you?
Yeah.
There is a guy right next to me trying to tear my lips off. Like, come on.
I also think that's the other thing with that is I need some more kind of, maybe this is feedback for the forums, but I need some more kind of indication of when they're going to do particular things. Because I feel like as a Lash, right, I pick someone up, throw them into the walker. I'm expecting the walker to stomp. 9 times out of 10 it will. Sometimes it just won't. But when I always get knocked into a walker even vaguely, it's going to stomp on me every single time, right? Show me some kind of indication of at least like on its leg even, like the lights going
like a
up.
Rune.
You know what I mean? Like it
cool.
charges up, it's got a slam ready. It's going to slam every time. And then the cooldown is resetting. So I can visually be like, okay, won't slam him yet. Got to wait for the walker to have its charge. Because that's such a big mechanic where it's like, that is literally free damage as Lash. 1v1 situation, going to pick the guy up, throw him into the walker slams, get the stun off, slam onto him. You're basically dead, bro. But it's so confusing where I think certain things in Deadlock happen sometimes, but not all the time. And it's so arbitrary. That's the thing that I don't like at the minute, where it does feel like there's a lot of this stuff that you can pinpoint where it's like, this is kind of arbitrary.
A bit randomized.
It works this way for some heroes, but not for others. It's the exact same thing as well, where I feel like, running around top of the skybox recently, you can see basically mid lane, whole skybox across the map's like this height. Mid lane, just on top of the actual dead center of it, it goes up slightly like this. It's like a slight raised cone. But it's still awful. Lash constantly bugs up there. You get slammed down to the ground. Nothing works properly. You can't really jump up there, right? Like playing Lash on blue lane should be really fun and where you get a lot of like sick ults off and have that verticality to do it. But it's so scary you don't bother. All you do is just do the slam off the wall tech, which is boring. Boring. It's also now other heroes are doing this where you just sit up there and you just attack. And I hate that.
Dude. I
hate that.
Yeah, well, they solved it here. They actually solved one part of the problem here, but they need to do that for more. For instance, like Sinclair, assistant damage now follows his gun's fall-off range.
Yes, you can't just put it up there and have it beam.
Well played, Valve.
But that's still, that's what I mean with that, though. There's a far easier solution. Just don't give them souls. I get there's a set soul radius, but just put the top player off. It's off limits. It doesn't count. Even if it's within 40 meters, doesn't matter. You don't get souls from being up there because then it becomes a power position that you use to attack or to start fights or to make a play, but you cannot just sit up there for 20 minutes in the laning phase and being annoying.
Yeah, because they have this thing right now where ABL pulled it off quite horribly in DFN where you would put Yamato up there and because her ult fire has no fall off range. You can just bomb people from up top. And it does so much damage early. And what they'll do is they'll put someone who's a great farmer underneath, like a Moan Krill or a Calico, who easily hits those last hits in lane. There's nothing you can do against. It's genuinely embarrassing.
3 games in a row. I had the Lash that go up top, do the stomp down, just sit up there whilst his teammate does all the farm. You get a Pocket and a Lash. Pocket just does all the farm. Also, that's the other thing. I don't understand why every single bullet on the shotgun can confirm or deny a soul because it's just outright overpowered compared to anyone else. Make it the center bullet. Center bullet, if it hits, confirms or denies the souls. The outer edge of the bullets don't do nothing for confirming or denying. That would balance shotguns across the board. It would make Calico more fair. It would make, what's his name? Big Blue Boy. Abrams more fair. It would make Pocket more fair. Exactly. Moan Krill more fair. That just solves it. It actually forces you to think about aiming a little bit more again, which has been removed with the idea that you don't have to confirm souls, which is the whole reason this issue exists anyway, because you can just sit up there and confirm 3 souls. You do that, that makes it better. You make it so they don't get souls sitting up top, that makes it better. Suddenly, Lash and Yamato combos that want to do that, it is a power play. It makes sense if you want to quickly get up there, throw some bombs in for an actual execute and get a finish on a kill. Cool, you've nailed that. That's pretty sick. Well done, bro. It's not just you're going to sit up there, bomb, 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 or constantly stomp on the side. And the stomp scaling damage early for Lash is egregious.
It's 223 level 1. Like, what is that?
You are left with barely any... on a Haze already, mate, you are made of paper level 1. You spawn into that game like a frail egg. You will crack under pressure. And he just stomps on you, you're dead. The worst one by far is if you go up against a Lash and also either a Pocket or a Viper, get a stomp off on you and a dagger, you're dead every time. You can't do anything. You literally cannot do anything.
I think the worst one I played into is Talon Lash. Like, imagine getting stomped into Arrow. Like, that was honestly one of the most unenjoyable lanes I've ever played in because the burst damage early on is just disgusting. And it just gets to the point where you can't do anything. So yeah, there is definitely something that needs to be done there. I quite like your idea of you remove souls from being accrued when you're up there.
Just literally just put like a no soul box, like a trigger. So once you're beyond, I think even if you're on, the the first layer without the zap pad, I think that's fine.
That's
when you
okay.
go up to the next bit, it's off limits.
Yeah, because at that point you physically can't see them if they don't want you to. Like they can just back it up. I think that would be the best way to solve it because if you try and solve it any other way, for instance, having alt fire on Yamato's gun, like have an increased fall off range, like you're fundamentally changing a character for a map issue.
Yeah. You're breaking characters. And I know Valve have always done this for years as well, where they prefer fixing things with lots of little things But I think in this one instance, just
Not
put
deep.
like a no soul trigger above that line, make the skybox a little bit higher, solves the issue with Lash being able to use it for more skill-based ults, and stops people just sitting up there farming. If they want to sit up there, they can, but it's a choice. It's not just free farm.
Yeah, hey, like when I first did it, I was like, I'm still getting souls up here. Like the fact that my brain immediately goes to I shouldn't be getting souls up here means that you probably shouldn't. Like I was surprised by the fact that I was still in soul range, and I think everyone else was as well. But instead of being like, well, this seems interesting, they were like, we can exploit this. There is a way to
especially
exploit
like
this.
right now though, that's the thing. That's the way people are going to use it, especially like in tournaments, because it is just clever use of game mechanics. Like unless there is some rule that says you can't do it. Like even I mean I thought it was based when we saw like was buff enjoyers way back. You remember when it was if two players melee the same power up at the exact same time? Weren't even a melee back then actually. It was just if you stand on it.
There's three of them getting both of them like on either side.
If you stood on it as it spawned, the entity applied to everyone. So like that was what it was. You'd all group up, stand there. Remember I was like, oh, they've all got gun buff. And it was that realization of like, oh damn, dude, that's a tech. Obviously,
but also it's like
I think they got the veto taken off them. Someone else got the first pick. That was the admin solution to it. But obviously, it wasn't technically in the rule book, because as much as like in every rule book for admins, there was the line that's like admin's discretion is final. We can add any rule we want, which kind of makes sense in esports. But it's one of those where like technically didn't do nothing wrong. Like that's on Valve's end for not testing the idea of like if four people stand on the buff, does it give it to everyone?
It was rough. It was definitely rough. So I think that stuff just needs to be changed. I don't, like you said, I don't think it needs complex solutions. I think it needs just a very basic and simple solution to it to get rid of it. It's been definitely curious things been thrown out at the moment. I think we are waiting on a bigger patch personally. As Josh said, this is a minor one. Didn't even at everyone on this one. It was just threw it out.
Not a lot of people realised. I didn't even realise it first. I logged in. I was like, oh, the souls have horizontal effects to them again.
In white right now.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I was quite happy because I was like, oh, nice. They put the souls back to how they should be.
Yeah.
Everyone has slightly more chances.
Dude, we've not even talked about jungle either, which is kind of surprising considering we have like so much to say about it.
Anecdotally, by the way, I think we've been playing a little bit more fragmented recently. We usually play together, but I think past couple of days it's been a bit different. We've been doing different stuff, and then I was editing, and we kind of only really played one game together. But in terms of how you feel, have you noticed games are slightly shorter? I feel like stuff's down to at least the 40-minute mark on average now. It doesn't feel like it's as long as it was. I feel like it's gotten smaller.
Well, from the games I've played, I will say the games feel quicker because it's easier to spiral a lead now without someone on the enemy team just farming up and getting overpowered. I've only seen it happen once so far. It was versus a Haze who was 40k, but they were actively just giving her all the jungle. I think that's kind of like a symptom of Cold Front as well getting nerfed. So it no longer does double damage to creeps, so farming isn't as outrageous in the early game. They also changed the golden statue buffs. Which is better. I like that one. They changed the ones which were most problematic.
HP one was a pain in the arse, mate.
It really was. Seeing Mo and Crows at 5k HP. I seen a Calico at 5.5k. I was like, that's too much. That is too much. And they also reduced the amount of neutral souls by 15%. So that includes Sinner Sacrifice. So overall, I think the games were quicker. That was mainly because teams were like, right, we have the advantage. We're going to win off the back of it.
Yeah,
which felt weird to me. Yeah,
well, exactly, because that's what everyone fell into. Even if you try and avoid it, you fall into the pitfall of we've killed them. We have rejuve. Should we take all their jungle? Should we now get all our jungle? Should we take the shrines? Should we jungle? And like it just doesn't end because that's just how it goes. Especially
you could always get back into games. Well. You could always get back into games, which is not as much anymore. And although it is upsetting being in a game where I'm like, well, I can't just go jungle and keep trying to get back into this game when we have a massive fight and then we win. If I lost my lane, the other lane's lost as well, I'm losing.
Although I will say, I feel like I've actually seen people doing the earn again because you kind of have to now. So earn fights are a little bit more back because people have realized like, oh, actually, kind of do need the souls.
That's moolah. Yeah.
Which inadvertently is better. I think it's like inherently it is a better way to do it. Like, if you weren't going to forcibly move the jungle locations to be more spread out and then I don't know, reduce the amount of golden statue buffs you get per Sinner Sacrifice. Doing it this way is better because it still feels like you get a reward, but they're not as OP when they're stacked. They're still pretty strong, and you definitely want to fight over them, but at least they're less frequent. They're not up at 8 minutes and then every 4. Yeah. It's 10 and 5 now, which seems a bit more reasonable.
I can't remember who said it, but someone was talking about Sinner Sacrifices. Some streamer who I was watching. I watched a lot of Deadlock streamers, as you can tell. But he was saying that they liked the Sinner Sacrifices because it gives people something to fight over on the map.
Yeah.
And I was like, I sort of agreed with it. And I was like, but there's a better way to do it. I think Sinner Sacrifices are great and they should be denied, but that shouldn't be the thing that people fight over on the map for. It feels silly to me, kind of thing. That's why I think we're both big advocates for side objectives. I think that should be something that is considered in the future. I mean, even just taking, the earn hand in spot where the tier 3 is, when it's on your side. I think that would be that those both those places would be awesome areas to add a side objective on the map. It's like, even if you just push them a little bit further towards the center of the map, and then you go fight for them. And like the whole point is that if the side objective is on your side, well, you've got the advantage because you can go take it. But it'd be only on your side if you're down souls by 10%. So it spawns on your side. The enemy team has to go to you to contest for it, and vice versa. So those would be good things to fight for, and they'd be fun to fight for.
The thing is, you can even do it though, where you could even go simpler than that and already work with the stuff they've already made, where you just have it so basically mid lane in kind of the center somewhere, or maybe kind of like the old urn spawns on either side, right? Like just where they are, say at the 20-minute mark, a golden Sinner Sacrifice that's very obviously like more shiny spawns
something like that, yeah.
Gives you 6 golden buffs if you get it. And like you see it being dropped off. So it's like falling down from the sky. So you have that indication of like, we need to go fight over that. We've got to make sure we get it. Because then there's a reason to like have a team fight, one player gets rewarded. You know what I mean? Maybe it's even like it's locked until there's a control point. I keep thinking control points is something that you could very easily work in, where it is like a King of the Hill style system where you have a majority players down on there for like, a minute total. That then gives it to your team and it's yours. So like some kind of thing like that where you get rewarded with power or a temporary buff or something. Just stuff like that. But yeah, it just like every podcast or every like feedback session, wherever we're like sending in our thoughts and writing ramblings on the forums, we always say that kind of stuff. It just feels like that would be the way to go, is add more side objectives in general. So I think you need it. And especially like for what farming is right now, it was fun because you got incrementally stronger each time. And it was very easy because it would just be run around cold front. Now you've nerfed that. I suppose people are buying Alchemical Fire. That'll probably be next because people are going to find out that it goes through walls and you can actually deal damage to about 3 jungle camps in one go. So have fun with that one, Reddit. But like outside of that, I just think it's a bit more boring where like you shoot them in their crit spot directly in the eye, move on to the next one. Your teammate's getting owned in lane. That's kind of it. That's all you're doing. Where I feel like if you actually have like tangible things to be able to sort of coordinate around and fight for at different points in the game, that maybe could be randomized as well. They're a bit more on like a rotation, right? Where it's like 3 events that can happen, you piece it together. I think that would be cool. And I think that kind of stuff is fun as well for the casual audience, where it's like it's just more enjoyable.
Just have like Exodia moments as well. It's like, well, if you get all 3 of the randomized objectives, you get another buff instead. So it's like, if you have won all 3 objectives by the time 35 minutes rolls around, and you've got that final and 4th buff off of those by getting all 3 of them, then you just win the game. Like, and that's how the map closes out, because you are just so much stronger than that point.
Yeah. Well, you don't even have to give them buffs. You could, like I said to you about it before, where like one of the good things that Heroes of the Storm did was where basically like when you would beat like jungle camps, they would basically be like bought. You would like pay for them. I can't remember if it was all maps or some maps. But it was like a pirate map where basically like you'd use coins to buy the jungle camps, and then they would push that lane out. So if you did like a side objective, if you don't want to balance it around soul gain, maybe you just get like 3 hellhounds that push down blue, and that keeps it pushed out.
Suggesting this as well. It's like you just have an ability to spawn something from those side objectives. I was suggesting, you have mid boss like be that you take away the respawn aspect of it, and you just make it into something that you push with, like mid-boss just appears and just laser beams a walker for you in the face, there's a big chunk of damage to it, but it means you can coordinate your team. It's like, I'm sending mid-boss laser on blue lane. Come join me. Let's take this walker. That's the type of stuff that I'd like to see. Just like more specific ways to push lanes using objectives.
Or it'd be banter even if just all the creep went down one lane instead of all of them.
Oh yeah, you like
know what I mean?
spawn a mega wave. Yeah, that'd be cool.
You just get all three in one lane.
You just decide when to send it in. I mean, there are people like throwing out those videos at the moment where they've spawned the bazooka trooper.
Oh, like siege troopers, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm going to call it bazooka trooper from now on. Yeah, the bazooka trooper, he looks pretty cool. I'm hoping that he's not just a different model and that he is something you get like after you take down shrines. Like he spawns now in the waves. After you take down a shrine, he's a bit stronger, pushes harder.
I think that makes more sense as well, because remember there was different models in the files way back that we found, and we're like, remember when obviously there wasn't much information on this, and like they didn't actually ever tell you that the reason you got mega troopers or like mega creep was because you got rejuve. Yeah. So it was when we pieced together and we were like, dude, they're getting bigger and they look slightly different, you know, because that's how it was back then.
Do you remember there's all the conspiracy theories like rejuve gives you health regen. Yeah,
I remember
rejuve gives you fire rate. Yeah.
Even on the videos, people comment and they'd be like, "No, this is wrong. Rejuve actually gives you increased fire rate, double HP. It makes the enemy souls less." And it's so like, funny. What do you want? But no, it just like it gave you. Like, oh, mate.
The funny thing was some of it was correct.
Some of it was true, but not everything.
But not everything, because
it was like an old wives' tale.
Yeah, like
everyone would have their own variant of what they thought it did. Also, people didn't even know what triggered it, because usually you'd get rejuve and then take shrines. So everyone was like, you have to destroy both shrines. When you destroy both shrines, it's like Dota. You destroyed the inhibs, and then the big troops spawn. But no one knew. And I remember, like, we were testing it and posting videos just for the Discord, and we're like, no, it's just rejuve, guys. Like,
it's just
that's what does it. But
so funny.
I think with that though, that's actually good. Like, that is better, even if it is just like they deal slightly more damage, which they do anyway. But you give them a different model.
Yeah,
like,
give something a front line. Like,
give a nice model. Like I know like all the models are placeholders anyways. The candle troopers will probably be refined and replaced before any of this actually goes like fully.
Change the denizens as well. Yeah. Like update them.
Well, they're really old. Like they're really old.
I want to see some variation in the jungle camps.
Yeah. It also would make it easier to know what the difference is. Yeah, of course. Like, dude, that's the funny thing, is it's so easy to think like things that are so baked into Deadlock that you don't even think about changing, that definitely could. Like, it worries me the day we're going to log in, maybe all the items have changed. Like, they actually look like items. Because right now, if you imagine, that is probably the easiest placeholder graphic ever. They're very simple templates. Some of them even look so similar, like Burst Fire, and there's another one that looks just like Burst Fire. Swift Striker, that's it. Yeah. They almost look identical. It's just the difference of like an extra line. And like, you think about that, like those could actually look like items. And we've even seen how maybe some of those look, where there's like the advertisements in the map for them. So it's like that kind of stuff is crazy when you think that there is room for loads of it to change, you know?
Yeah, I think honestly at the moment the game is so frustratingly good. Yeah. Where there is, for Valve, I'm jealous of them as game developers, because what they have on their hands is a game that just feels like it's got extreme potential. And most of the changes they make and most of the things they add, you're like, that's really cool. This could change and be made better. But it's better than like the fact that Valve keeps releasing patches and it's a case of, it's not a case of, oh, that's just rubbish. Yeah, what you've done there is just plain rubbish. It's always a case of they release something like, oh, we really like that, but you could now do this, right? You could do this as well. Which is very fun. Also must be a little bit stressful for them too, where they release a patch and they're like, oh shit, now we can do a lot more. But yeah, I am excited because I do think that there's probably a big patch on the way at some point. This is just a minor one for Yoshi to be like, I'm still alive, I still exist, and then we'll probably get a bigger patch shortly, which we will again talk about as usual. But I do think that they're making the correct decisions right now, and they are addressing certain areas. And I just get overexcited sometimes because there is a lot more to be had out of this game.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing we always talk about, where it's like Deadlock kind of has no bounds of like where the sandbox could go. I think it's interesting as well because every time you play a game of Deadlock now, it feels more and more like they're trying to give you enough options where like you aren't funneled into one path each time. It feels like they do want you to play it more kind of like, with the idea of it being like a roguelike of like, hey, every time you go in, try something different here, see what feels better, try different items, try different stuff. And I think that's why they're playing with stuff a little bit more and trying to wean out all the things that are like absolute meta must-haves consistently.
Yeah.
And it did take a few months, but at least
they're being aggressive now.
That's good. Yeah, that's better. Yeah. We had that period where we were saying like, you don't need to rebalance everything every week. Kind of getting bored of that. Like, stop doing that. But these moments where you weed out like, dude, these 4 things are a pain in the ass. They come in, they fix them, and then go, okay, get back out there, see what else you find. That's better. Because otherwise, people are going to get sucked into the same sort of vacuum of building the same things, using the same things, that it would never change. But I think this is the better way to do it. Calico appearance.
Yeah, he's attacking the other cat. Who's down here.
Bloody hell.
Underneath. To grab his big paw.
There you go.
He's evil. Like Calico.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. I think it's good. And like the game's in a really fun place. I actually say that every time because it just like it is. I saw a lot of people that obviously were like very polarized with 3 lanes initially. I think a lot of that's calmed down now. Week after week, it feels like it's getting less and less. Yeah. More people are getting into it and being like, oh, actually, I didn't give it a fair go. And I think that is just Deadlock overall. It is one of those games where you have to just play it.
Freelance has problems, but they're all fixable, and there is various solutions for it. Whether they go down the role queue aspect or they create, I think that the easiest one to do is just to give. I think League of Legends does it, where the towers in League of Legends have plating, where every time you take a plate off the tower, it gives you money. In this case, it would give you souls, but it gives the Guardian more defenses in the early game. Like there is definitely advantages to taking those platings off the Guardian because you get more cash off it. But it's not a case where by the time I'm ready to help you from mid, the Walker's gone. Because the Guardian might be damaged. It might have lost quite a bit of its plating. The plating would fall off at 15 minutes in. But at least your lane isn't just demolished. And it's possible to get towards that mid game. I'm going to go to the forums and write that up now. But yeah. I think that would be a necessary change.
I mean, there's a lot of good takeaways. We'll do our homework based on the ramblings today. I think it was a good brainstorm. There's some good ideas there that I think actually maybe could be beneficial. So we'll see. Who knows? They made Souls horizontal again.
I like that. I actually like that change. I think the only thing I don't like about it right now, and I think it might be just the case. You remember when they changed Souls last time? I was like, I hate it. And then like 2 days later, I came to it and I was like, I love it. I think it's the same thing here because there's a slight delay now on the soul popping, which feels awkward where I'm usually have the pre-aim above it. But I think that's because I got into my head a case of, I can immediately deny because I just pre-aim. Yeah. I think pre-aiming souls is bad.
It sucked. It was awful because it just made it so like burst fire characters or triple shot characters or people that had really small magazines. So like even like Haze, usually you're caught at a bad time where you're thrown into a reload. So you only have like 20
even if fast bullets. Reload, it's like didn't matter. Yeah. It was like, I've lost that. Yeah.
So I think it's good. It is better. It's just
I enjoyed it.
Again, it takes time. It's also the other thing I've noticed is it almost feels like it's more responsive if you're not pre-firing. If you shoot the second it spawns, it feels like you get it. If you pre-fire it, it feels like the server doesn't like that and won't give it to you. So I'd almost say it's better to get out of the habit of pre-firing souls in general now and just tap on spawn. Yeah. And as long as your reactions are good, it's yours. And it makes sense because the variants, I think they said it's like 0.2 to 0.7 now in terms of the spawn time on the variants. So it's like there's a pretty good variable.
But I think it's a nice mix of what we had before and then what was added recently, right?
Yeah, rather than also having the old school buffer where it was just more preferential to the person confirming, which was a bit imber. That didn't feel as good. Yeah. So I think this is fine. Like it's just they're trying to get you out of the habit of just pre-firing, I think.
This is the best spot Souls have been in, I would say, in the entirety of the game. Like I think that they could never touch Souls again and the way last setting works and it'd be totally okay. I actually think they've kind of come to a point now where I'm like, please leave it as is. What you've made should be in the main game.
Yeah. The only other thing I would try, if they were ever going to try anything again with it, is I would leave Souls like this, for mid and late game, and then make the early laning phase more proactive again by making you actually have to get last hits if they're not going to actually block off some of these areas with no soul barriers like mid lane.
Yeah.
Because that's your two solutions: is you either make people last hit, or you just don't give anyone souls when they're sat up top.
I think I already suggested this to the team, actually, the feedback post I made. It was a while back, though. I was like, I genuinely do think that, now that you mention it, that was one of my feedback. It was a case of late game, have the souls pop automatically and you already get them, but pre 10 minutes, you should still have to shoot them or you lose them.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows? We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with it.
Potential. But it's not bad. It's certainly not bad. The game's fun. These are all good ideas. I think there's a lot in there that would actually make it a little bit better and potentially fix some of the issues right now that you've got. Otherwise, I think it's fun. I don't think there was really anything else in that patch that was really major. I'll pull up the patch.
No, just minor respawn curve adjustments, which I liked because it did get to a point like 15 minutes. Suddenly I'm down 40 seconds, so they have brought that down a little bit. But it still feels like you die late game. It's like, well, you lose the game, which is good.
It's just more aggressive across the board. Like I had the numbers, but I put it in patch notice. But like across the board, it is just more aggressive. So it's far more punishing for dying in general, even early to late game, which like makes sense. You do notice it. I think there's some games now where it's like sometimes you die and you're like, really, like a 60-second respawn on this early into the game, stuff like that. But you get used to it. Here you go. Here's the post. So first curve end has been changed from 20 minutes to 19 minutes. So that's 8 seconds to 40-second respawns. So by 90 minutes, 40-second long respawns. Second curve has been changed from 35 minutes to 30 minutes. So at 30 minutes, you go now from 40 seconds to 70 seconds. So 30 minutes, you're hitting those 70-second respawns already.
Mm-hmm.
And then third respawn curve, that's going to be changed, which has gone up from 40 to 45. But the timing's also gone up by an extra 5 seconds. So from 70 seconds to 80 seconds.
Yeah. I think that's good, personally. I think all those are in a nice spot because it felt like before it wasn't punishing enough in early game and it was too punishing late game.
Yeah.
So I think now we're at a spot where it's a case of you die early game, it's not the end of the world. It definitely does stymie you in terms of farming, but late game it didn't feel like you died and it was a gimme, like you couldn't get enough done.
I think it's more now, it should force teams to coordinate a little bit better when mid boss is up to not do random fights, like take a coordinated team fight if mid boss has just spawned back in late game, because if you lose that you are getting absolutely battered.
I hate that. I still think I'm not a huge fan of the way I've said this before. I say it again. I'm not a huge fan of how mid boss paces the game at times. Just in terms of, I personally would like to see it where mid boss gives you a buff that you can outplay, as opposed to a buff that you have to wait out. I think mid boss should be a significant advantage over the enemy team, but it shouldn't be a case of 5 minutes after mid boss has been taken, not much can be done against them. It's like a case of, well, now I have to tiptoe around in my jungle or sit in base. It should be a case of we can fight them, and if they make a mistake, we can win, but realistically, it'll be difficult, but it's possible. And if they die, they're dead for 80 seconds, and we can get stuff done around the map. But yeah, overall, you are right. At the moment, it does require a little bit more coordination. If you die, it's bad. It is bad.
You get punished for it, which kind of makes sense. Like, I think that's fair enough. Like, it's just a lot of changes here that you can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to, like, at least target the key areas that were frustrating for most people. I think especially the loudest personalities as well that were upset about a lot of this stuff. Like, that's what they've gone for first. Then you've gone back in, tried to reduce the length of games, and you've just done it as a little balance patch and shipped that. They did. Do you remember last time we spoke about it as well, by the way? They have changed the name of the EXE. So they've done that now. It's just called Deadlock now.
Yes.
Not Project 8 anymore. Yeah.
Finally.
Which also, PSA.
It's a thing.
If you use any custom NVIDIA settings, or if there's like an AMD equivalent, or even anything that's set up to detect Project 8.exe, like, I don't know, an Elgato software or something else, go in and change it because it's going to break everything. Because it won't find the game anymore. Because it's now deadlock.exe.
Deadlock.
It's like, because it's like with mine, I used like sharpening on NVIDIA, but suddenly the game looked blurry, and I was like, well, that's weird. But that's when I realized, because you go in,
It's not Project 8 anymore.
It's called Deadlock now, so they've changed the name of the game on the EXE.
Guys,
it's
the game exists. The game exists now. It's going to continue to exist.
Yeah.
A lot of art passes going through right now as well. Like they are definitely working a lot more on that side of things. I don't think Abrams will be the last that we see, although he looks awesome right now. I expect to see some more in the future. I don't know how many though, because it took him a while to get Abrams out. So we'll see how that takes place.
Well, you don't know what they're doing at once. That's the thing. So obviously they could be doing loads of them all at once.
Yeah.
Streamlining the overall art style, then you ship them all one after another. Because we could get to a point where maybe they give us one each big patch, and then all that takes is like nearly 30 patches. You've got them all.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound that
almost
hard.
a year.
Yeah, doesn't sound that bad actually.
Hey, it's a while. We'll see what happens. I'm excited for more to come out though.
Yeah. Well, 2 a patch. That's 15 patches. There you go.
That's not as long.
Yeah.
That's still 30 weeks in Yoshi's mind, but
that's if you're getting a patch a month.
Yeah.
If they could be doing it quicker. You never know. You never
3
know.
years.
We used to get them every week. You remember when it was a patch every week?
Yeah, I felt bad for him at that point.
Every Thursday.
That was a lot of work for those guys. But I think it was necessary back then because the game was in desperate need of constant attention and love. At this point, it feels more a case of refining. Refining the gemstone that is Deadlock. EXE.
It's true. Way back when we woke up that day and they had posted the video on the Discord. And we were like, oh my God.
Hey guys. It's
patch notice. You guys watch patch notice? Shiv's out. Go watch patch notice. We were like,
hell?
My God, what's happening? Valve shared your video. What? What do you mean?
Base Yoshi.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Good lad.
Yoshi Senpai. What a dude. But yeah, I think that's kind of it. I think that's everything for that patch. It was a good one, not going to lie. As minor updates go, usually they're pretty boring. It's like, we've changed Bebop again to be slightly worse.
We have Nerf Paradox again.
Kelvin has been buffed.
Again.
Every patch.
Kelvin...
Or they've changed Haze's ult. That was a classic. But
yeah. I think that's the thing, a lot of characters. I mean, I do miss when Yoshi put in the notes that... Actually, I don't think it's even Yoshi because there's a separate guy who writes up the patch notes for him. But he would always clarify for the Abrams patch where it was like, this is a nerf. Yeah. This is a buff.
Yeah, the little parentheses.
Yeah, I want him to come back and start doing his sarcastic patch notes again, man. That's sad.
It was a good time.
Where's he gone?
It was a good time. Don't know. I do like all the fake Yoshis as well that are now on the forums. There's many of them.
Yeah, there's Yoshishi as well now as well. I like him.
There's quite a few. There's quite a few. They're popping up. But all right, well, there you go. I think that was pretty good. I think that kind of recapped all the goings on. I feel like that's sort of everything that's happening in the scene right now.
It's a more serious podcast, but I think it's okay.
Well, it's all right. You don't have to talk about fruit every week.
Yeah, it's true.
Just most
every other.
Exactly. Or, well, every week bar one. Probably more accurate.
Yeah. All right, then.
Well, there we go. Yeah, we're done. I mean, that was like an hour and a half, so I hope you finish your gym sesh if you're listening at the gym. If you're doing a drive, where are you commuting to that takes an hour and a half? Where have you gone?
It's like 8-hour drives in America. I think that's the thing.
That's just going to work, to be honest.
Yeah, we've barely put a dent in that, but
that's fair.
There's 17 of them.
There's that one dude. There's that one guy who always listens in his truck who commented before.
Nice guy.
So shout out to you if you're listening.
Shout out Truckman.
Truckman 420.
Yeah.
The #1 truck driver in North America.
Blazing it down the highway, obviously. Yeah.
Blaring his horn.
That's what we need. We need a soundbite of that. We can throw it in.
Yeah.
Truckman's horn.
Truck Boys.
Yeah.
The new podcast.
I send it to our email. We'll receive it and we'll put it on a soundboard. Play it in the podcast.
If you've listened this far, send in whatever. Really, send some stuff for the mailbag. We'll read it out. contact@deadlockair.com.
We could even do good old Deadlock memes. If you want to send some Deadlock memes in, we'll have them on the podcast as well. We can look at them.
Yeah. Well, probably listen to them, but I suppose look as well.
Show them.
Bit of both. Use all the senses, but not touch or taste.
I could lick the screen.
Probably not smell.
That would challenge me.
Yeah. We'll look into it. But there you go.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. That's another episode of the Dead Air podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Let us know in the comments below. If you didn't enjoy it, don't let us know, because I don't want to know.
Yeah. It'll ruin my day.
I don't want to know. Not interested. Actually, mate. Right, we'll see you then.
All right, bye.
Get out of the studio.
Yeah.
Come on.
I want to make coffee now. Come on. What you get?
That's enough now. Right, I think they're gone. Right.
Oh, okay.
Good job, mate. Right, see you next week. Bye.
Forums?
Bye. Yeah, time to do the notes.
Bye-bye.